All right, what is up, everyone? Episode 2, the first one, seems to be doing pretty well on YouTube, so decided to give it a shot for a second one. We got, I think, like 16 topics total to cover, and obviously it'd be like a 9-hour video if we decided to
Yeah.
cover all those.
Yeah, that's
Um,
a lot of editing for you. We could make it a mini series.
yeah, I mean, we definitely could, like a like a YouTube short, if you will.
Yeah, we could hide little Easter eggs in there for the giveaways.
There you go. That's a good idea. That's definitely something to think about because editing stuff and removing stuff. I mean, I've gotten pretty good at that, so it doesn't really take a while. Especially, it just takes the trying to get some good intro music and a good intro so people don't
Oh,
lose.
yeah. I mean,
But
if people can put Easter eggs in there, I don't see why we can't.
oh yeah, I can make it happen. I can put something in there. It's like that big, and you'll never see it.
Yeah.
So I think it would be a pretty good start to talk about how and I guess why we got started into even collecting autographs. Not necessarily sending through the mail or anything like that, but just in general, like what sparked that addiction.
Hmm. Well, for me, I'm fortunate enough to have a minor league baseball team in my hometown, the Hagerstown Suns in Hagerstown, Maryland. Uh, in the mid to late 80s, they were still a double A affiliate of the Orioles. And I grew up as an Orioles fan because, being in Maryland, Cal Ripken is a god there. And
hmm
the Nationals didn't exist then. And them being an Oriole affiliate, it was like you got to see these future Orioles come up through the ranks. And I was just like any other kid. You would find a baseball somewhere and just try and get as many signatures on it as possible. And there really wasn't a lot of stuff to do in my hometown. There kind of still isn't. And so baseball was pretty much my whole life growing up. Because if I wasn't watching it, I was playing it. My parents were pretty active in the local community as far as the little league goes. Like
hmm
dad would umpire or work in the press box, and I don't know if it's like this with youth sports where you're at, but each team would have a team mother, and my mom would be the team mother where she's working the concession stand, things like that, where even on nights where your team isn't playing, it would be your
hmm
team night to work the concession stand. So, I mean, I pretty much grew up at the Little League field, and it was only, hell, like a 3, 4 minute walk from the Little League field to where the Suns played. So we would climb up in the trees and watch the game from there or try and sneak in because after the sixth or seventh inning, they would open up the gates so you could go in for free. And back in the day, I mean, your parents really didn't get worried about you going to the
Yeah.
ball by yourself. So uh, then once I got a little bit older, I started realizing that they had team sets, minor league team sets. So now instead of getting a baseball signed, who probably the next day you don't know who the hell signed it, you actually have the cards with the players' names.
yeah.
Uh, and then I would say around the time that I got into, I would say high school is when I really got serious myself. And by that time, the Suns, the Hagerstown Suns, they weren't a double A team anymore. They moved to the South Atlantic League and they were a low
hmm
A affiliate. But the good thing about them being low A is usually at the time they were a Toronto Blue Jays affiliate. So the first round draft picks would get sent to Hagerstown And
Mm-hmm.
on draft picks usually have Topps cards. So then we could actually get Topps cards signed. Like the year that I remember getting into it heavy was Vernon Wells, former Blue Jay. He started his career in Hagerstown. And then my all-time favorite baseball player, Jason Worth, started out in Hagerstown. Well, not started out in Hagerstown, excuse me. He was with the Delmarva Shorebirds, and they would come through Hagerstown a lot because they were in the same division. And one cool story is the Suns ended up playing the Shorebirds in the South Atlantic League playoffs. The Suns beat the Shorebirds to eliminate them on the road. So one of the big things we would always do, even if it was the last home game of the year and the team wasn't going to make the playoffs, we would always ask the players
Mm-hmm.
for the hats. So after the game, we stopped Jason at the bus, Jason Worth, and I have his hat, his Delmarva Shorebirds hat from his first full season in professional baseball.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, yeah. I asked him if he a couple years ago he signed with the Mariners, and he signed late, so he ended up uh, spending a long time in extended spring training, which was like a dream come true. My all-time favorite baseball player, I got to hang out with him, and it was just him and my kids, because he would go have his 3 or 4 at bats, and then he had nothing left to do, and there's nobody there at the ballpark. There's no fans because nobody cares about extended spring training. So then he ended up giving me one of his Nats bats, Washington Nationals bats, and I asked him about the hat, and I asked him if he wanted it. He said no. He didn't collect anything from his career, you know. So I have all kinds
That's
of.
pretty interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's it was pretty surreal. Surreal. It was like my collecting journey had come full circle, you know, because I seen him at the beginning of his career and then at the end of his career, and
Exactly.
being able to talk to him about that and kind of reminisce. And then I think he spent like 2 weeks in extended spring training, and then they ended up sending him to AAA. He wasn't ready for it, and then I think he retired before the season was even over. Yeah.
Yeah. It and just for the people that watched the first episode, I think a lot of our beginnings of collecting goes back to minor league.
Hmm.
Um, because here we have the Burlington Royals, which is it was like 10 minutes from where I grew up, and then one of the houses me and my wife lived in. I mean, I could walk there if I wanted to, and now it's like where I live now. It's like 15 minutes from me. And growing up, my granddad worked for a company that sponsored like a night that the Burlington Royals had every year, court night, and so
Yeah.
he would always get free tickets. And on LabCorp night, LabCorp employees got like if my grandpa wanted 1 or 10, they would give it to him, and it didn't matter how many. And so every year growing up, my grandpa would take me and my brother, and we would watch the games, and I would you know just like focus on the game and everything. But I never really thought about getting anybody's autograph or any of the players or anything like that. And then looking back on it, that was such a stupid like naive thing for me because Bartolo Colon came through there when it was the Indians. Um, who else was it? Manny Ramirez came through
Yeah.
there when it was the Indians. And I, growing up, I never thought to get anybody's autograph. And then, like me and you've had this conversation before. Josh Hamilton was with I think it was I
Princeton
can't
Rays.
remember. Yeah, that's what I was about to say, the Princeton Devil Rays.
Yeah.
And growing up, or looking back now, I remember watching him play, and I remember them saying, that he was from Fuquay Arena or around that area.
Hmm.
And I never thought to get his autograph. And then you fast forward to 2010, and me and a guy I worked with were talking, and he was like 50 years old, and he was into collecting. And
Yeah.
he was like, "Oh man," he's like, "if you really like these players, baseball players are the ones to send to, and they're some of the best ones." And I'm like, "There's no way that I can send a ball or a card to this player and it make it to them, and they sign it and put it in an envelope and send it back." And he's like, "Man," he's like, "I've never done it." He's like, "But I know that people have. You should try it. You should try it." So I was like, "Okay." He's like, "Why don't you send Josh Hamilton a ball?" And I was like, "All right." I was like, "I'll give it a shot." I was like, and
So was this when he was
the
with?
thing that I hate most about it is this is when he was with the Texas Rangers back in
Oh,
2010.
okay.
Yeah, and so I'm like, okay, I'll send him a ball, and I had no knowledge about collecting autographs at the time. And so I started doing research, just Googling it, and I'm like, okay, I see that a Rawlings official Major League Baseball is the best thing to get it on. And that the time I couldn't find one for less than like $24. And I was like, I really don't want to pay $24 for something and then send it through the mail and never get it back. So I bought I think it's a Rawlings Playmaker baseball from Walmart. It's like $1.47.
Yeah.
Sent it out the end of January and just 100% completely forgot all about it that year. Didn't even like think anything else about it. Didn't even think about collecting autographs or anything like that. And then the 2010, 2 days after Christmas, my mom had texted me and was like, "You've got something here in the mail." And I'm like, "I haven't lived there for like 4 months. What could possibly be going there?" And so I go to her house and I get the package, and it's got the my return address at the top, and then my address at the middle of it, and then the return address from Josh Hamilton in Texas. And I was like, "There's no way, there's no way." And I pull it out, and there is a Josh Hamilton signed baseball that took almost a year to get back. And just as soon as I had that ball in my hand, it was just over with from there.
Get hooked. Yeah, but
And then
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just kind of circling back to the minor league thing. After that, I really started like autographing hard
Mm-hmm.
around here for the Burlington Royals, because they play in the Appalachian League, which is where the Danville Braves are as well, and they've had some pretty stellar guys come through there,
Yeah.
and so that with my newfound knowledge, if you will, and the minor league players, that opened up a whole nother portal to the addiction.
Yeah, I can't imagine anybody that got started getting autographs being hooked by a major league team, because it is hard as hell to get autographs from major leaguers and constantly getting told no. So, I mean, I honestly think everybody, well, I can't say everybody because it's not going to be true, but
Yeah,
yeah, just
and
yeah, so
and I think too, like also, um, we had this conversation before too. A lot of players kind of get too big for their britches, so to speak, once they start moving up in the ranks and start hitting, their AAA and then their major league.
yeah.
I've never personally been to a major league game, so I wouldn't even know like where do you get there like 2 hours early, 3 hours early, or that kind of thing.
Now it's a lot harder because they have nets.
Yeah, the safety nets to keep people from being hit with bats and
Yeah.
everything else.
Some stadiums have parts where you can kind of slide a card underneath there, and then I've known some people to cut the netting, and so that way you can reach a ball or a card through there. But it's
And
definitely a lot harder now.
and I don't. I mean, I'd imagine you'd have like to go to a practice like every day that they had one, but the one Panthers practice I got to go to this past season, it was their last practice. It was the end of the season or whatever, and the players were in. They were in the practice field practicing or whatever, you can't watch the practice. You can't go in at all. It's closed off to like personnel and media, and so you're standing there along the fence line, just kind of waiting. And one of the security people who carried the players back and forth on a golf cart, he comes up to this woman standing beside of me, and he's like, "You know how you're asking for a favor?" And she was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, I just made it happen." And he pulls a card out of his pocket and hands it to her. And I'm looking at it, and it's a Christian McCaffrey signed card. And apparently, at some point, she had gave this to the security guy and was like, "This is for my it was like special needs nephew or cousin or something like that. Can you get him to sign it?" And the security guy just one day just went to Christian McCaffrey's locker and just set it on the locker with a note, "Hey, a fan wants to sign for her special needs kid." And then at some point or another, Christian signed it and put it back in the same spot. And the security guard just happened to look, and there it was. And I'm like thinking to myself, that like specific scenario has to be like one in like a billion.
Yeah. Did you get a good look at the autograph?
Yeah, it was pretty sweet. It was pretty spot on.
So it was his paid autograph, or was it wasn't the free autograph that he gives out?
No, it wasn't the C with like a little squiggly coming off the bottom of the C that you would think Michael J. Fox wrote.
He's also still active on the signing circuit.
Yep, yep. Michael J. Fox, if you hear this, please forgive me. Something tells me I don't think he'll ever hear this.
Well, I think he's going to create an account now, a Michael J. Fox login, just so they can comment on the video. So
I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it.
hey, we'll take the views.
I'll take it. I will, absolutely. I'll take the comment too, because YouTube sees that, and if there's something that has like 10 views but 400 comments, they'll still rank it up there, in the comments. So feel free to comment as Michael J. Fox if you want to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and going back to what we were talking about in the first episode, with people just getting started out, and with the proposed like 140 minor league teams about to, what you were telling me looks even more now like they're gonna get the boot. That's gonna put a damper on things. I mean, there's no way around it.
Yeah, I know MLB has floated these ideas where the teams that get contracted, they're going to create like 2 new independent leagues, but I'm not sure how that'll work, because people, I don't want to call them snobby, but I mean, if you ask your kids, what team do you want to go see play, a minor league affiliate of like somebody that could be playing for your favorite team, or basically just a team of guys that have no home, no parent club. I mean, who are they going to choose? Now, I mean, I've gone to a lot of independent games. I really like them because you can see guys with major league experience, or guys that maybe fizzled out in AA or AAA, but they still have cards. And then a lot of former players on their coaching staff. I know where I live in Maryland, there's a team up in Pennsylvania. It's in York, Pennsylvania. They're called the York Revolution, and that stadium is awesome. Like, it's in the Atlantic League. That's one of the better or more well-known leagues for independent ball. And those rosters are stacked just from a getting your card signed standpoint, because almost everybody on the team has a card. And we had gone, and I want to say it was like a meet the team day. So everybody on the team is sitting in a fold-up chair on the field. You just go right down the line. I have my autograph book, got everything signed. I got like, in an independent game, I ended up getting around 60 cards signed.
That's a pretty good day. That's a really solid day.
And the stadium was nice. It's not like this rundown stadium. It could easily pass for, I would say the lowest level would be a double A stadium.
Oh wow, yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't even know that that's gonna like save any teams as as far as like
Uh,
just their setup and how much of a baseball feel it has to it. Because I
yeah.
think at this point that all they're looking at is dollar signs at this point.
Yeah. I know there's been some towns that haven't been hurt by losing a minor league affiliate. I know in Savannah, Georgia, they used to have the Savannah Sand Gnats in the South Atlantic League for the longest time. They were a Giants affiliate, but now they have a college team, and they're called the Savannah Bananas. And they sell out every home game. They have some crazy streak where I think every game in their existence they've sold out. Their waiting list to get season tickets is like the Green Bay Packers season ticket waiting list.
Just like
And
years of waiting.
yeah, yeah, and then they made some headlines this year. I want to say last month they said to improve the fan experience, we're going to remove all the advertisement from the outfield walls. And I don't know if our viewers have ever seen a minor league stadium, but it looks like a NASCAR driver's fire suit with all the sponsors on there. And, but that's how much
Yeah.
money they make. They can do that for the fans. I don't know how it really benefits fans not having advertising, so I kind of like that, you know. But yeah, and they're just a college league. So once the college baseball season is over, it's basically guys from all over the country that will come there and play for this team. And it's not like you know who in advance, like, oh, I'm going to go to this game because they have the projected number one draft pick in this year's draft. It's nothing like that because the rosters don't get released that early. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. The every year the Burlington Royals they do an exhibition game before their actual season starts, and they do it against the Kernersville Bulldogs, which is the college team, like
Yeah.
exactly like what you were just talking about. And I think that I can't say for sure. This is just my opinion on it, but I think that's a little bit of the reason why that maybe like Burlington, the Royals are going to get the axe is because I think since 2010 when I really started getting into it, I think they've had like two number one prospects start out there, and so people that are really into baseball and people that really want to watch baseball, they know that it's just going to be a bunch of like 5 through 8 rounders pretty much, and that there's not. I don't want to say a lack of talent. I don't want to say that because there's always that one that that thrives and does really good. But I think people know that Burlington's probably not going to make an Appy League championship, and if they do, it's just going to be So people just mainly go for the Thirsty Thursdays and that kind of thing. But I mean, and where I was going with that is there has been times where the Kernersville Bulldogs beat the Burlington Royals in an exhibition game. So you've got like potential major league players, students, and these college students are beating them, and that just kind of leaves a bad taste in people's mouth, and they're like, well, if they get beat by this college team, then they're probably not going to be that great this season.
Well, you kind of got to think about it though. Uh, a rookie league team, a lot of times it's guys drafted out of high school, or maybe a lot of their Dominican prospects or some other guys from overseas that are extremely young. But then, say you have a college team, you're going to have guys that are in their 20s, that are more developed, that have been playing at a higher level longer than some dude out of high school. So their plate discipline as a hitter is probably going to be better. As a pitcher, they're probably going to know how to work the zone and have a better feel for their
Yep.
pitches. Whereas, a high school kid is just usually rearing back and throwing it as hard as he can. So I I wouldn't put too much stock up against a rookie ball team getting beat by a college team, even if it's like D3 or something. You just gotta realize that, hey, these guys on the college team are actually developed. They're starting to grow into their bodies. You know. So,
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it makes sense. We put it like there's a lot of people, especially here in Burlington, that they take um, Burlington Royals baseball like very serious. When I think between 2010 and now, they've made it to the Appy League Championship twice and lost
mm,
both times, and then pretty much every other season other than those two have been, you know, out of well, I think it's around like I want to say around somewhere around close to 60 games. I think it is they play, and I mean they end up with like 10, 15 win seasons.
ooh, that's rough.
Yeah, yes, it is, and um, that's something else too. I'm glad you brought up that I didn't think too bad. That I didn't really think about for people just starting out is the if you do your research, college teams are a good way to go
Yeah,
for getting players, especially. Elon University is 5 minutes from me,
really.
and I went. Yeah,
They just
me and
a guy for the Mariners got drafted last year. I think he was the highest draft pick ever from Elon. I want to say he was like fourth or fifth rounder. He was a pitcher.
that's pretty impressive. Especially, yeah, that if he went fourth or fifth round, that would be just like absolutely astronomical for Elon. And for years, they would have they would go back and forth with the Carolina Tar Heels. One year they'd play in Chapel Hill, the next year they'd play in Elon. One year they'd play in Chapel Hill, the next year, and yeah, and they were playing in Elon one year, and me and my wife went. And Elon, their college baseball field, I mean, I would be absolutely surprised if it set 100 people,
Yeah.
and that's for the bleachers and then like behind home plate. And so after the game, I'm standing right there at the gate, at the visitor side, and one of the players comes through. He signed my ball, another one, and it was just like they were just lined up at the gate signing my ball, just one right after the other. And when they got done, they would just walk to the bus. And then there was the coach and another guy standing over there talking or whatever. And my pen had actually just literally my pen took a shit, and there was a little girl beside me getting autographs, and her dad was like, "No, no, no, no." Her pen quit working, and mine was still working.
Oh,
And her dad was like, "I'll get Colin Moran over here if you let us use your pen." And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "That's actually, half the reason I'm here is because of Colin Moran."
really?
And yeah, the guy was like, "Colin, will you sign for my daughter?" And he comes over there and he's like, talking to her, like, "How are you doing? Did you enjoy the game? Are you going to be a softball player when you grow up?" That kind of thing. And he was like, "This gentleman right here was nice enough to let my little girl borrow his pen. Would you sign his baseball?" And he was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And me and him sat there and talked for like 2 or 3 minutes, and he handed me the baseball and the pen back, and he was like, he's like, "I got to get on the bus," and I was like, "Cool, man." I was like, "I look forward to seeing you, in the big show one day." He's like, "Oh man," he's like, "I don't think that, he's like, it's a dream, but he's like, it's hard to make it. It's hard to make it." And
Yeah, you made it with the
lo and
fire.
behold, he made it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually I have a Colin Moran story. Uh, I've met so many minor league baseball players that are now major leaguers. It's insane. Uh, he got drafted. He was a fairly high draft pick. Uh, I can't remember who he was originally drafted by because it wasn't the Pirates. I'm
I wanted
thinking.
to say that. I wanted to say the Padres, but I think that was Will Myers.
Yeah, Will Myers was the Royals actually. He played in Burlington. Uh, but what was it? So Colin Moran, first round draft pick, and he was playing in the Arizona Fall League. I didn't have anything of his to get signed because he didn't have any cards out. And the gift shop back in the day used to sell broken bats. And I was going through the broken bats for $10, mind you. I found a bat that said Tar Heels on it. So I looked at the roster. I was like, who could be using a bat with Tar Heels on it? Where instead of the player's name, it said Tar Heels. So
Yep.
I was like, all right, this works. $10. Colin Moran, got to be his bat, right? So I showed Colin the bat, asked him if it was his. He said no, but I still had it sign it anyway. So I was like, well, it's not his bat. I'll start a Tar Heels major league bat. Any Tar Heel alumni that made it to B, just get that signed. Never did, but that's my Colin Moran story. Got him on a Tar Heels bat. It's not his, but yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I don't have is. Well, I mean, I guess I technically do because I did the auction with a signed bat for the Rise Above Veterans, and anybody that knows anything about eBay, you don't see who wins the bid until after they win it, and
Yeah.
and it's just as soon as it ended, my brother texted me. He's like, "Yo, I won the bat," and he was like, "I want the money to still go to Rise Above Veterans." He's like, "But I want you to keep the bat." So that's the only way I have a signed bat because the Royals, the Burlington Royals, they do broken bats as well. Theirs are 25.
That's still not bad.
No, considering because some of them are like broken half, and then some of them are just kind of like split, really, and they're not, completely destroyed.
Yeah.
And there's positive like impacts on the hobby. Like, what makes it easier, I guess, for people to get autographs like this, like the really positive things about collecting or how to collect.
Uh, One thing that I've actually seen benefit people, and this will be like, well, duh, everybody knows that, but actually being polite to the players. I've seen it where players won't sign for you if you don't say please, but if they hear somebody say please or say Mr. So and so, may I please have your autograph, that they'll go straight to that person first. Just being a decent person and having good manners. I've seen that work out. Or kind of like the Colin Moran story with you, lending somebody a Sharpie, where there's been times where a little kid's been trying to get an autograph, right? And then they hand the Sharpie or the ink pen to the player, and it just craps out on them. And then the player will be like, "Do we have a Sharpie or an ink pen?" And I'm like the first dude there, Johnny on the spot. So give it to them. They sign the kid's ball, and then they skip over everybody else, come right to me, sign for me. So yeah, just being a decent human being.
Yeah, I
That's
would agree with you. I was at a Panthers practice one time. I think it might have been the first one I ever went to, and there was a guy there, and he was calling players by the wrong name, like left and right, and it was like he was like looking at like Ian Thomas, but he's like, Vernon Butler, will you sign for me? And they would just look at him and be like, and then keep walking.
yeah.
I think he got like two players' names right. And then somebody else was like, man, he's like, if you don't know him, he's like, why don't you just Google the roster and look at the number on their jersey at least? Because
Yeah, right?
if you're, I mean, that's like, I feel like that would be basic common sense, in which, leads to question why he was even there, getting autographs anyway. But it's like, I mean, it just goes back to what you saying. Just be polite, be a decent human being. And, if, you know, a player comes up and signs for somebody beside of you, and then just walks away and doesn't sign for you. Like, don't be a dick about it.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, some of the other things I've had work for me is I wouldn't call it networking, but talking to people because there's a lot. You probably know this. There's a lot of downtime in getting autographs. Usually, you'll be somewhere for 3 or 4 hours, and if you total up the time you spend getting an autograph, is like 10 or 15 minutes. Because
Oh
like
yeah,
say
definitely.
you're at the Panthers practice waiting for autographs for practice to get done in 2 hours. Almost all the players come out at the same time. So in like 3 or 4 minutes, they could be gone. So I've talked to people. You just kind of find out the backstory of kind of like how we started the segment with how did you get into collecting? Things like that, where you might have a card that they need and they have a card that you don't, so you end up trading cards, to try and get signed. Because, like, I go to the Padres a lot, their spring training complex, and I could have like 25 Will Myers cards, and I don't have any cards of somebody like, say, Greg Garcia, their utility guy. But this dude over here, for some reason, doesn't have a Will Myers card, but he has a ton of Greg Garcia stuff. So, just make a
Yep.
trade like that. Or I take, usually what I'll do, I'll take all my cards for that team to the complex because you just never know when a player just decides, like, hey, man, I'm going to sign everything you have today. So I'm always prepared. And then usually if I see little kids, I mean, I'll give them cards because I don't need 15 uh, 2020 Top Series 1 Will Myers cards. There's
Yeah.
I
Yep.
don't know 15 people to trade with. And then so sometimes they may pay it forward to you and hook you up with something. But or you may run into one of the things that happens a lot in spring training with the minor league guys. Their family shows up a lot,
Mhm.
and like you'd be surprised how many family members don't even have cards of their kids, and you give them a card and they're like over the moon, and then they get in their son's ass and they're like, give them that, something like that. So you end up coming away
Yep.
with a hat or something. Uh, I mean, I guess it just goes back to being kind and talk to
Yeah.
people. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Don't be a stick in the mud. I've been to several Panthers practices, and I always use that reference because that's only like the really like major like
Yeah.
I other than a game that I've been to, and um there's been times where Greg Olson was one of the best signers on the team, and obviously, he's with the Panthers up until this year for his whole career. He's just the goat. Actually, I think he played somewhere else before there,
Uh,
but
uh, yes.
that's what I was gonna say. The Bears, yeah, and he he would pretty much sign for anybody he could, and kind of closer when practice was starting, he'd come up this way and then, start right here and then come up. And the closer you were kind of to the practice field, he would just kind of break away and then go up. And there
Yeah.
would be people that would just be like cussing, like, "Oh God, he didn't sign this." And it's like, I get it. You probably want him. You may need him on an item to finish something or something like that. But I mean, I'm sure he hears you as he's walking away, and I'm sure that's just going to drive him further away.
Yeah.
And so it's like if you don't get that autograph, I mean, you know, you're gonna be upset about it, but it's not like you're not like saving lives or anything like that.
Yeah, there's a video on YouTube floating around of Danica Patrick back when she was still racing in NASCAR of a fan encounter where she didn't sign for him and he started talking smack, and she came back and yelled at him. It's like extremely cringeworthy to watch, but I mean, you actually kind of felt bad for Danica because she's like, I try my best to sign for everybody. I'm at my job right now. You got to understand that I have places that I got to get to. I'm not going to be able to sign for everybody. But then at the end of the video, she still didn't sign for anyone, even though she ripped this guy's ass for 5 minutes, you know. But so everybody
That
have to
I
go look that up.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up too. I didn't know about that, and I kind of thought that was going to happen um, at the second uh, Panthers practice I ever went to. The first one I went to, Captain Munnerlin came out, but he didn't sign for anybody at the before practice. He
Uh,
signed for a ton of people after practice, and including me. And I made a joke with him about the Gamecocks being so terrible, and he thought it was funny. But he signed for some people, and then the third one I ever went to, he came out after practice, didn't sign for anybody before. He came out, and a couple of people were like, "Cap, sign for me, Cap, sign for me." He's like, "Man, I got to go lift weights. I gotta get strong for y'all." And this one kid was like, "Man, you suck anyway." And I'm just like, it's like you ruin it for everybody.
yeah,
And
since have been
even
strong.
yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't, I wouldn't say Captain Munnerlyn was great, but he wasn't terrible either, you
Yeah.
know. And just like, why be that way? It's like acting like a kid that didn't get his way. It's like there's no point in acting like that.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And I would, just another positive is, I mean, this goes back to what we were talking about the first thing too. Is the players that are willing to sign, stuff that's sent to them through the mail. Because as me and not every player will do that, and there's not every player that will even send your crap back without signing
Yeah.
it. So I mean, those are definitely the positives that I can think
Yeah.
of right off the top of my head.
Well, I just thought of one that's like super obvious. It's totally right in front of our face. You live in North Carolina. I live in Arizona. How the hell did we meet? We met over autographs. So, I mean, without
Yeah,
autographs, this wouldn't even
very true.
happen. So, I mean, I
Exactly.
pretty big positive.
I would say so too, for sure. And if it wasn't for autographs, the Facebook page wouldn't be sitting at like 640 likes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've made a ton of friends through autographs. Uh,
Yeah, exactly.
there's like some that I actually still see. My one buddy I met in California when I was stationed there. Now he comes to Arizona every year for spring training because he's a Reds fan, and that's where the Reds have spring training now. So I meet up with him every year. My parents, they met up with these dudes a long time ago that they would help them get autographs because these guys were they were big into taking photographs of the players, and then they would give them to the players. Nothing special, just little 4x6s of the
Yeah,
player. And players really like that because not every not every baseball player has, a baseball card or something like that. And they really appreciate that stuff. And my parents would help them out, and they would meet up at ballparks and exchange gifts at Christmas. That's how much their friendship developed. Uh,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and you end up seeing the same people at the stadiums all the time. So you end up like becoming a family. Like your ballpark family and stuff. So yeah, I've met a ton of.
Yeah, it turns out that he is the clubhouse manager for the Hickory Crawdads. What do you know? A Texas Rangers affiliate.
Yeah, there you go.
We're sitting there talking, and he's telling me all these stories about, oh well, Leotis, man, he'll sign his cleats and give them to me, or so and so will sign his hat and give it to me. He's like, man, I got a storage building full of like just boxes of like autographed baseballs, bats, and hats, and I'm trying not to be like that guy and being like, man, well, if you'd give me all of that, that would be perfect. And so I still talk to him every now and then, and he's not with the the Hickory Crawdads anymore, but he's with the Winston-Salem Dash, and
Oh,
then
no.
they play the Down East Wood Ducks, which is the
Yeah,
single
so
A.
he actually moved up a level from low A to high A.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. And so I still talk to him every now and then, and he's in Winston-Salem for me is about an hour and 15 minutes, and he's like, man, if you ever want tickets to the games, hit me up. And then, like I was saying last episode, there's a guy that I'm friends with that lives out near Frisco, the Rangers Double A, and I've got 4 balls in this case back here of team signed balls, and yeah, and it kind of goes along with what you're saying about the whole networking thing.
Yeah, there's a guy I met on Facebook. He lives in Tennessee, and he helps graph the Southern League for me. And then I'll help him with the spring training autographs of the affiliates that doesn't come through Tennessee. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean just the people, because I have met people too that we were talking, because there's one guy I can think of specifically, and he lives out near Round Rock.
Okay.
And a couple of years ago, he was like, "Do you live near the Greensboro Grasshoppers?" I was like, "Yeah, they're about 35, 40 minutes from me." And he was like, "Would you be able to help me out with so and so?" And I don't really go to that many Grasshoppers games, but I try to go to one or two. And I was like, "Yeah, I'll absolutely do what I can do." And then I was like, and I think it was like, I'm trying to think of who it was for Texas. I want to say it was like Matt Bush or somebody, like some relief pitcher or something like that. And I was like, yeah, I actually have a card of Matt Bush who's currently in Round Rock. Could you help me out? And he was like, yeah, man, I'll be in touch with you. And then just never got back to me. And I'm like, I definitely would have helped him out, and I didn't want it to be like a I'll only help you out if you help me out situation. But it seemed like because I asked him for a favor in return, it was just a little bit more than it was worth to him. So I definitely think that making the right friends and having friends in low places is where it's at.
You gotta watch out. Excuse me.
Yep.
We're gonna have to edit that.
I can edit that out.
I don't have the coronavirus. You can't get it.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Somebody did test positive for it on the base, though.
Yeah, we North Carolina got that official shelter in place starting Monday.
Oh yeah, that's right. You were telling me that. Yeah, this weekend I'm gonna get some box out.
I got you. Yeah, that'll do it. Well, I think that's gonna do it for episode 2. And like we said before in episode 1, you can check out Justin at Charm City Autographs or Charm City Graphs on Twitter. Check out his YouTube channel as well. I forgot to mention that last time. Please don't kill me. But and if there's any questions you guys have, feel free to reach out to us. Or if there's a certain topic you want to hear us talk about, belligerently ramble or whatever, just let us know. You can reach out to him on his Facebook page or Twitter. And mine's at Chasin the Graph Facebook page or Twitter or Instagram. I'm not going to get a Snapchat. I'm not doing that.
Or TikTok?
No. I think I'll let leave those two alone for a little bit. But yeah, feel free to reach out to us, guys, if you have any questions. And that's going to do it for episode 2.